Hey, what's cracking, y'all? I'm back once again with some comic reviews for the week of June 6, 2012. I have 8 books in my pull list, and this has certainly been a hell of a week for comics, much more so than last week, I could say. I've got 4 DC, 4 Marvel, so without further ado, let's get this started, shall we? I took a little experimentation and picked up Tony S. Daniels' Detective Comics number 10. Basically, what's going on in this issue is that Batman is after some thugs who have hijacked an armored car, which is transporting they're transporting containers of a mysterious radioactive substance. And a bunch of these guys who robbed the car are dressed up like Batman. And the police go in there to handle them, and, you know, a lot of dead meat on hand. From these guys. They're basically dressed up like Batman, but they're carrying a lot of heavy firepower. Batman goes in there, takes out some of them, and comes to find out that how desperate these guys are to keep their identities protected. They don't want to be taken alive if can help. And, you know, this stuff is really good right here. I'm actually impressed because it's the first time I've picked up Detective Comics from Tony Daniels' run in the New 52. So I'm impressed with it. The thing that I liked about this issue, but, you know, kind of caused me to wonder a little bit, is that even though they're dealing with the Batman, the fake Batman, I was kind of expecting the police to go, you know, what the hell is, you know, our Batman doing down there with these guys? But they don't do that. Gordon's common sense probably seems to have rubbed off on some of the other cops because they've seen Batman in action and they seem to know how to distinguish the real one from the fake ones. Even ones that aren't carrying guns. This was really good, and especially to when we go to the main mastermind who's behind the theft, and what he does to Batman at the end of this issue really had me going, and I was like, not bad. Not bad for a first issue of me reading this series. I'd actually like to stick with this and see where this little story arc goes. So, thumbs up, not bad, Mr. Daniel. You did pretty good. Moving along now to another comic from DC, which tells its title with a couple of nouns. Action Comics number 10 by Mr. Grant Morrison, and we hail the return of Rags Morales to the artwork. Always good to see these two guys together. Interesting issue. I'm going to say the last issue, which dealt with the African-American alternate universe Superman, really had me scratching my head because I know this is Grant Morrison. He's good when he's writing normal sometimes, but when he does those little off trips, like he did with issues 5 and 6, it's really annoying. But this issue keeps us focused on the present day Clark Kent. We got this hunter who's after Superman and looking to take him out, and all the meanwhile, Clark Kent is still, you know, he's fired up about, you know, he brought down a corrupt Wall Street official in the Glenn Morgan fella, and he's just got a fire lit under his ass to head out there and try and solve the woes of the world. And he even meets with the Justice League saying, you know, hey, we should be out there doing more, doing what we can to stop all the bad stuff from happening in this world. And the Justice League is kind of sitting back and saying, hey, you know, we've got our lives, we've got our own responsibilities and our limits. And I have to say, for the couple of pages that the Justice League was there, I actually like Morrison's writing on them more than I do from Jeff Johns over in the main title. This was actually a surprise, and I enjoyed it quite a bit, even for the little bit of time that we got to spend with him. But, you know, this is a young Superman who's fired up on ideals, and, you know, he's wanting to get out there and get things done. Meanwhile, his Clark Kent persona is out there having lunch with Jimmy and Lois, and they're off to meet Perry White at the Daily Planet. But there's an accident that breaks out at the Daily Star. And I'm going to go ahead and spoil this a little bit, which is that we have a disgruntled former employee who's basically tacked a lot of dynamite onto himself and is a human, or actually a suicide bomber, in front of the Daily Star, and Clark Kent winds up caught in it. I probably gave away a little too much like that, but I'm going to say, this does introduce a very interesting twist for what they're going to do with the Clark Kent persona now that this has happened. And it's pretty good. The stuff with Nimrod is kind of interesting, too. There's a lot going on in this issue, and there's a lot that set off Superman completely in this issue. And I have to say this is actually a nice return to form for Grant Morrison. Despite the eccentricities that DC allows him when he writes this alternate stuff, I don't know if it's of his own whim or just whatever. But, you know, man, please stick to what you're doing with this normal stuff. It's good. And there's a backup feature in here as well that I have to talk about too. There's a very interesting piece on some people talking about Clark Kent and just the kind of person that they know him to be. I thought that it was really good, and even Lois is talking about how much knowing him has impacted her, and it's very well done. It's a good story to pick up in here as well. And this type of writing for the backup features justifies the $3.99 price tag, which they put on Action Comics now. The only quip that I have to have with the backup feature is that it notes that it takes place after the events of the next issue, which hasn't come out yet. That's annoying. But it's still a well-written backup feature to a really good issue, and I would recommend picking this up. Let's move along now to our favorite walking compost heap from DC. Swamp Thing number 10, featuring the return of longtime villain Anton Arcane into the New 52. By the way, this is a small fan service. Only people who've read the older Swamp Thing will know, but I love this kind of homage cover to the Bernie Wrightson Swamp Thing from 1973, I believe it was. Very awesome looking cover. Unfortunately, as much of a struggle that takes place in here between these two, we did not see. Yannick Paquette is not here. Yannick Paquette actually drew the cover, so very nice. But we actually, instead of Paquette or Marco Rudy, we have Francisco Francavilla taking over on the art. The story is good. We get Arcane back in here, and he's talking to somebody while he's in the process of killing them. And it's during his monologuing that we get a little bit of interesting backstory on Abigail Arcane in this issue, which I thought was pretty good. Meanwhile, Abigail and Alec are recovering from their battle with the Rot, and after defeating Sethi's forces, are going to try and get some rest time, but no rest for the wicked in this issue. The art in this is really good. There are points to where Swamp Thing is drawn that it kind of reminds me of, maybe Francesco is a fan of Mike Mignola and it kind of incorporates his style a little bit into his own work. So that's pretty good. But what I have to complain about is the pacing of this issue. There's not a lot of dialogue in here, and there's not much of the artwork and the framing that we see for a lot of the past issues of Swamp Thing so far from this relaunch. I read this issue in 3 minutes. I went back over it, and even staring at the artwork, it was still a 3-minute read on the second turn, too. It's a good issue, and, you know, there's good things to look at in this issue, but it is not as captivating. The art is not as captivating as what the normal artists on this issue are. Nor was the story was very rushed. We feature the return of Arcane in this issue, but it feels more like filler material. Perhaps, you know, the next issue will kind of pick up or slow the pace down a little bit to where we can enjoy some stuff. But this is almost a disappointing issue. You know, the guys who work on it do what they always do well, but it's too damn quick in my opinion, so that's why it kind of suffers a little bit in my eyes. So maybe next one will pick up. Next up is Jeff Lemire's Animal Man number 10. I loved this issue. This came very, very close to being a pick of the week for all the stuff that happens in it. So we've got Buddy Baker in the realm of the Red, trying to make it to the totems in order to get his soul back to Earth. And he's got the shepherd with him, and they actually have to stop and pass by a patch of the Rot, which has started bleeding through, because apparently when one particular element starts looking to gain power, pockets of it will start bleeding into the other two realms. Excuse me. And they have to stop and fight a little bit of the rot. Things start to look grim for Buddy and the Shepherd, but then reinforcements show up, and they're able to get out of it pretty quickly. What's the more hair-raising problem for this issue, though? Before I get to that, I will concern the guest spot in this issue. We have Constantine, Zatanna, and Madame Xanadu of Justice League Dark, who meet up with Buddy's family and try to convince them that they need, once again, to find Alec Holland, the Swamp Thing. And, you know, Buddy's wife has, you know, had it with the superheroes and the monsters. She's understandably snapping for all that they've been through. But then we as readers must sit there and criticize their intelligence because, you know, you keep running from it and you keep trying to deny the superhero stuff, and bad shit still continues to happen to you. And, you know, Constantine is trying to sit there. He's being a dick to everybody. I like the little banter back and forth in between him and Cliff, and there's even a little bit of a confrontation in between Maxine and Zatanna, which was especially hilarious in this issue. But, you know, basically, the JLD is there to tell them that Mrs. Baker needs to get her head out of her ass and, you know, let her daughter find the Swamp Thing and learn how to use her powers. But there is a sidetrack where Cliff steps out for a minute, and there's a very bad situation which comes up. It's implied that something bad has happened to him in this issue, and it leaves for a very bad cliffhanger, and Buddy's stranded. What is he going to do to get back to the world? We're just going to have to wait and see. Lemire continues to do excellent with this. It's one of the good series from the New 52 that I'm impressed with, and it's great. I keep plugging the series, and, you know, as time goes on, I'm starting to run out of good things to say for Animal Man over and over again. But excellent job on this, and I hope they continue the good work. Now let's swap over to Marvel. I know this is getting extremely lengthy for one of my videos for the comic reviews, but bear with me, the redneck is getting somewhere. Let's start off with Ultimate Spider-Man number 11. I'm going to be very quick about this one. This was not as fast to read as what Swamp Thing was, but this is still pretty quick. I enjoy Brian Michael Bendis writing Ultimate Spider-Man. He still continues to do a good job with Miles Morales. However, for the amount of material in this issue and what happens, I do not feel the $3.99 price tag is justified for this issue, nor especially for Ultimate X-Men or the Ultimates either. I still read those books, but you know, they're not. I shouldn't be paying $3.99 for material that you can read just like that. Miles and his uncle team up to deal with the new Scorpion. This matter is taken care of very quickly. Very quickly. And Miles is in the situation once again, threatened by his uncle that, hey, you're either going to team up with me next time and do what I say, or I'm going to tell you, Pops, that you're Spider-Man. And that's pretty much the end of this issue. Also, we get the return of Aunt May and Gwen Stacy back into the United States now. I thought we were leaving them out of this series, but apparently Bendis sees that there is something that needs to be done with these two, and perhaps something that they can contribute to Miles Morales. I don't know where they're going to go with that, but it's still good. Again, doesn't justify the price tag on it, but it's still good. You know what? I'm going to hold this off until the next to last issue. Let's go with Matt Fraction on Invincible Iron Man number 518. This is also a very quick issue. This is more action-oriented this time instead of the slowed-down pace where everybody's talking in this issue. Short, sweet, and to the point, we got a brand new Iron Man now. Iron Man 2.0, I'm not sure. Familiar face behind the machine. And Tony Stark has just entered the final phase of telling everybody that he is no longer Iron Man, that he needs to deal with his personal problems, and he's stepping away from the suit. None is more shocked about this than the Mandarin, however, who, you know, he feels that Stark still has something up his sleeve against him, but didn't expect him to break off and relent from his persona so soon in this game. the issue with Spymaster is dealt with. We have a major kidnapping which takes place in this issue as well. And we have one of the Mandarin's minions say, "I'm not going to take any more of your bullshit." And a challenge is thrown down at the end of this issue. Much faster pace than what Fraction has been doing with the past issues. Still intriguing me enough to want to read it, and still one thing that he writes which he does very well at. So kudos to him on this. Now, this thing which I had avoided, Matt Fraction on Avengers vs. X-Men number 5. Round 5, if you will. Ding. Once again, the Avengers and the X-Men are fighting, trading quips, beating the shit out of each other. There's even a good panel where Cyclops is blasting Wolverine, and Wolverine's just slashing the shit out of him. It's good. Okay. We're getting the action of what the title tells us we're getting in this, and that's fine. The matter of Hope bonding with the Phoenix is dealt with in this issue, but this takes a major turn. Hope has been built up, quite predictably, or at least to me, because I'm seeing a lot of these events play out in certain ways. The Phoenix doesn't go for Hope, but instead goes for somebody else. I'm not going to spoil who. The pacing of this issue is much better. This is actually one of the better issues out of the series so far, despite this being a Matt Fraction story. He does good with it. What makes this issue more interesting, however, I can't say that it's a good twist or not, because I'm still trying to make up my mind about that. What I will say about who the Phoenix takes, though, I was not expecting it to happen the way that it did. My jaw hit the floor. I'm still trying to decide if this is a good twist or a bad twist, but it definitely got my attention. But there is one thing which I must complain about with this issue, however, and that's with an issue of Romita's artwork. Perhaps Fraction told him that he wanted something looking like this, but when the Phoenix takes its chosen host, the host costume looks like a major ripoff of Nightwing's costume. That's my major gripe with that. But the issue is certainly an attention getter. Is the series worth continuing with? Well, I'm saying with it mildly out of curiosity, but if you want to make the proper decision, let your wallet be the deciding factor for it. If you're not satisfied with the issue, don't continue paying something, or don't continue paying for something and reading what you don't like. If you don't like it, drop it. I'm only sticking with this out of mild curiosity and just seeing where they go with this and how it's going to impact the X-Men come October. So, yeah, it's kind of a meh issue in the long run, but there is a definite attention getter, and it leaves me wondering suspense what's going to happen next time. Let us come to my pick of the week now. Peter David's X Factor number 237. I was surprised with this issue. Peter David always manages to deliver terrific issues of X Factor. One after the other is terrific. He always puts out cliffhangers. But for once, we got a conclusion to something in this issue. It's still some setup, but it's some very good conclusion. In all seriousness, this is hands down, like, I didn't start reading X Factor until about 4 years ago. So there's a lot of the earlier stuff that I have to catch up with. But from what I've read of Peter David's X Factor, this is by far the best issue that I've read. The issue is entirely hysterical because we've got Polaris and Layla Miller forcing Rain Sinclair to take a road trip with them. This issue goes in between hysterics, some very dark places, and then some very serious and somber places too. I'm not going to spoil too much about this issue, but what I will say is basically the plot is dealing with the fact that a lot of X Factor is tired of Rain's bitching about her problems. Now, understandably, she's been dealing with a lot for the past year or so. I mean, you know, when's Peter David going to give her a break, I was wondering. We get that in this issue. They take a road trip, and we start off with some hijinks that are very much Thelma and Louise with some mutant twists to it, which are very good. But then we go for a little counseling session at the church because Rain has been having a very tremendous crisis of faith. And she's been dealing with her problems in some very fucked up ways. I mean, I was surprised at the implications of the dark turn that she had made for herself. But the end of this issue does take care of a major problem for her character and actually manages to make her pull her head out of her ass with a visit to John Madrick's over at the church. What he does in this issue to make her come out of her problem took me by surprise. There was a very serious character moment in here I did not expect to come. I thought things would be hysterics, which there are at tremendous points, but there's a very serious issue that these hysterics need to lament us over when dealing with a heavy subject of what she's going through. Now, the subject in question, it's kind of hokey in circumstances, but what it represents is a very serious deal, and the trauma of what Rain did several issues back and just how much that is eating away at her. This solved so much of her problems and actually sobered her up quite a bit from her misery. And Peter David just managed to move me for this character at the end of it, and I was just completely taken aback by it. Sir, you continue to write X Factor well, and my hat is off to this man on doing a terrific job with it. I was very moved by her plight, and basically all that needs to be said is get this issue, because this is really, really good. And I continue to hope to see great things for that character and for the rest of the team in general after this. But on a more positive note, this is a terrific week for comics. I was very happy with most of what I got, and I hope that you were too. I hope you guys find some great comics to read. And until next time, I will be around with some more reviews, so until then, I will catch you guys later. By the way, small plug, go check out my buddy the Mount Vernon Kids comic reviews. Should be up posted sometime tomorrow. And until next time, I will see you guys later on, so be good and stay safe.